Translation. O king, in your very next life you will become an excellent Brahmana, the greatest well-wisher of all creatures, and certainly come to me alone. Purport. Shri Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Suhridam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shantim richati. A person attains peace by understanding me to be the well-wishing friend of all living beings. Lord Krishna and his pure devotees work together to rescue the fallen souls from the ocean of illusion. This is the real purport of the Krishna consciousness movement. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 51st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Deliverance of Muchukunda. So this was the last words of Lord Krishna. Let's hear what he said before, but just to recap a little bit, if we remember how the chapter began and how Muchukunda burned to ashes the Yavana king, and then what happened next? He woke up, he saw this Yavana, and then he was just a pile of ashes the next moment, and what happened? Krishna appeared and in the cave, and what Muchukunda did? He started offering prayers, but before that Krishna said something, and Muchukunda asked Krishna something. So we can imagine, you have slept for a long time, you wake up, you see some person who is very angry, looking for someone, and then that person burns to ashes, so there's a pile of ashes, and then next thing you see a wonderful, beautiful, brilliant person who is actually, by the effulgence of his body and beauty, the whole cave is illuminated. So he was astonished and completely forgot about the pile of ashes and said, "Who are you? Can you tell me something about your birth and activities?" And I think actually you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna smiled and said, "I have many births. I appeared many times in different incarnations for different reasons, but this time, on the request of Brahma, I came to help the demigods. And I'm here now, and since you once prayed to me in the past, I appeared before you." So that was very important. Krishna said, "You prayed to me, therefore I'm here. And since I'm here, you can ask me anything." And he said, "Anyone who pleases me will," anyone remembers that? What will be the result if somebody pleases Krishna? We discussed this in that verse. He says, "will never lament, will never ever again lament." Shoka. And so he says, "Muchukunda, please ask me anything, any boon, any benediction." And the king started explaining his situation in beautiful prayers, basically admitting that he is in great illusion, although he is glorified as great king and emperor, but he is very fallen and dejected, and now in the previous last verses, he actually asked for something. So that's something which a devotee usually does in the normal way of praying. Before asking for anything, you submit yourself through the mood of dainya, meekness and humbleness, and you praise the Lord, and then you request your wish. So he said in verse 54, this couple of verses before, he says, "Manye, I think, mama anugrahayishyate krito, you already gave your mercy to me." So he's saying, well, you want to give me something, but I think you already gave me your mercy, anugraha. Why? Rajanu bandhano apagamo yadrichaya. because I don't have any more attachment. Anupanda, I'm not tied to the Raja, to my kingdom and to anything in this world. I'm not attached. Why? Yadrichaya. There is no reason. Spontaneously, yadrichaya, this is a word in Sanskrit, used sometimes, Krishna uses it to indicate how bhakti arises, yadrichaya, on its own accord, without the apparent reason. So he says, without the reason, I'm detached. And therefore, I think you have shown me already your mercy. And then in 55, he says, Nakamayayamyam tava pada sevana. This is the key prayer. I don't have any other desire than tava pada sevanat, than service to your lotus feet. So very beautiful. Then he says, it's not my concoction, this desire. This is something which those who are akinchana pratyatma varam vibho. Varam, as we said, is the benediction which Krishna wanted to offer. So for this vara, for this benediction, pratyaya is the sincere prayer of those who are akinchana, those who have nothing, no other desire for this world, or they have nothing in this world. So those who are kinchana, that's the greatest prarthana, the greatest prayer, prarthaya tamat. And then in the next verse he says, Purusham vrajamyaham. I come to you, Krishna. This is actually what I want, just to come to you as a person, Purusha. I approach you, vrajami, as my object of service. And then in the last verse, 57, which was read, it's in a beautiful meter called Malini. He is expressing a prayer which exemplifies someone, a devotee, in this ecstatic feeling of humility. And this is given by Rupa Goswami, that verse, as an example of humility. And Prabhupada gives that verse in the Nectar of Devotion, and a wonderful translation. So just recite the verse because it's so nice. It just presents, in essence, the devotee in the material world, the feeling of a devotee who feels distressed and therefore asks for shelter. So the verse is like that. Chiramiha vrijanarthas tapyamano nuparai avitrishashat amitru labdashani katanchit sharanadasamupetas tvatpadhabjam paratman abhayamritam ashokam pahi ma pannam isha. My dear Lord, because of my bad deeds in the past, I am everlastingly aggrieved. I am always suffering from, anyone remember? Yeah, Shat Amitro means they are not my friends, but who are they? And he spoke about that already in previous verses. Again, he's repeating that. My desires coming from the senses and mind, but still my senses are never satisfied with material enjoyment. Somehow or other, by your grace, I am now in a peaceful condition. This is another way of translating. Some of the acharyas say, or that means that he now is peaceful because he attained the shelter, or he is saying, I cannot attain peace because of the troubles my senses and mind give me. But here Prabhupada says, somehow or other, by your grace I am now peaceful because I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, which are always free from all lamentation, fear, and death. O Supreme Protector, O Supreme Soul, O Supreme Controller, kindly give me protection. I am so much embarrassed. So that is the prayer. Pahi mapanam, me, the unfortunate, please protect me. And please protect me. How? By engaging me in the service. And then the 58th verse is what Krishna answers to his prayers. So I will read that verse. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Sarva Bhauma Maharaja Matiste Vimalurjita Varai Pralobhitasyapi Nakamair Vihatayata The Supreme Lord said, O Emperor, great ruler, your mind is pure and potent. Though I enticed you with benedictions, your mind was not overcome by material desires. There's no purport, but I will read a short explanation from Jiva Goswami. O king, all of those ruling the world, Sarvabhauma Maharaja, or O emperor or king, the repetition is for respect. Your words are those of the Lord himself. This shows the good nature of the Lord. Your mind is devoid of impressions of samsara, vimala. Vimala means no contamination, no mala, and is endowed with bold nature, urjita, bold nature in rasa. The reason is that your mind is not overcome with objects of desire, from kingdom up to liberation, like persons afflicted with greed, because of the practice of bhakti. You have stated that you are fully surrendered in the previous verse. Your mind is fully preoccupied with bhakti. Okay, so Krishna here emphasizes your mind is clean and powerful and strong, unmovable, because of bhakti. Therefore, you are not shaken by material desires, even I offer them. So 59, Pralabhito varayatam apramadaya vidhitat nadhir ekanta bhaktanam ashirbhir bhidyate kvachit. Understand that I enticed you with benedictions just to prove that you would not be deceived. The intelligence of my unalloyed devotees is never diverted by material blessings. Okay? So Krishna here explains why he did what he did. So he sometimes does this, offers devotees benedictions and kind of indicating that he can fulfill any material desire also. And you remember any instances of Krishna even pushing for benedictions? Yes. Yes, but that was like automatic. He didn't specifically ask. Prahlad. Yeah, this is Nrsimhadev repeatedly kind of asking, you have to ask me something. And then what Prahlad answered? He answered many things, but one of the things was, I'm not a vanik, I'm not a merchant. I don't want to ask anything because of my devotion. And so there are many, many cases like that, and sometimes devotees protest. Why you ask me this? Why you offer me this? My Lord. So this is an example, because the relationships between the devotees and the Lord are very sweet, very instructive, very endearing, and sometimes Krishna tests the devotee, entices, or praises, or chastises, and devotees respond in a different way, and always pleasing the Lord. Even sometimes the Lord is feeling a little bit embarrassed by the situation. Like, for example, when Sanatana Goswami was with Jagannananda Pandit, and Jagannananda suggested to Sanatana Goswami, who was very distressed because of his situation with his body afflicted by this disease and with wounds around all over his body, Lord Chaitanya every time embracing me by force. So Sanatana said, I don't want this anymore, Lord Chaitanya, to touch me. And he was just sharing with his friend Jagadananda what to do. And Jagadananda said, you go to Vrindavan. Which anyway, Lord Chaitanya said to Sanatana, you have to go to Vrindavan, but for now you stay. And Sanatana went to Lord Chaitanya and said, my dear Lord, please give me permission, now I want to go. And Jagannananda advised me. And Lord Chaitanya apparently was very angry. What did he say?
He's just a boy.
Who is he? Jagannananda is there, and he's talking in third person. Who is this Jaga? A stupid boy, a young boy, to teach you who are all the guru of all of us. You are the guru of everyone, because Sanatana was older than Lord Chaitanya and many of the others, and was very learned. So Lord Chaitanya was praising him. You know, so how can he teach you? And then Sanatana Goswami said, "My dear Lord, you are giving Jagannatha the nectar of chastisement and the poison of praise. You love him so much, but you're giving me this poison by praising me." And Prabhupada translated the next verse like, and hearing this, Lord Chaitanya became somewhat ashamed. He didn't say, he said Sanatana, I love you both, but I cannot tolerate when the etiquette is broken, when somebody who is junior advises seniors inappropriately. So yes, in these exchanges, Krishna is unpredictable basically, and here we could say it sounds like in one sense he's teasing Muchukunda. Even now, in just that what I read, because if you remember, Muchukunda was lamenting his position as a great emperor, and he was saying, yes, after one conquers all the other kings who were before rivals, and then they submit to him in the court, and he sits in the great asana, everybody is bowing down, and he's like, yes, I'm the ruler of everyone and everything. Then when I go in the chambers of the ladies, then I become like a mriga, like a pet animal, and I'm led by. So he was, and he said, you know, this idea of being a controller is such an illusion, and especially in the position of somebody who is a king. And Krishna, the first thing he says, his repetition, Sarvabhauma, the greatest ruler, Maharaja. It's like, you know, he's repeatedly emphasizing, oh, you're so great, you're a ruler, although he said, I'm just a foolish fallen soul. And he said, well, twice he says, pralobita, I enticed you. And it's usually a negative word, right? Something that, what is the meaning? I actually got the meaning from. To attract artfully by arousing hope or desire, to lead astray for one's true course. So, I mean, why Krishna does this to devotees? Why he wants to entice them and lead them astray? Well, Krishna says here, I did that to actually to prove that you would not be deceived. You will not become pramada. And this was something which Muchukunda already said. He admitted that he was mad, pramada, from pride and power. So Krishna says, no, you cannot be enticed, pralobita. You will not become apramada, and this is the glory of my devotee. That's why I tested you. So this is one of the reasons Krishna tests devotees, especially those who are advanced. Those who are beginners, Krishna tests them just to see if they are sincere and serious. Those who are advanced, he tests them to show example. And then, the next verse, 60. Did I read? Okay, let's read a short comment from Vishwanath Chakravarti, on 59. Know that by offering you benedictions, I'm showing other worshippers how you will not be distracted, apramadaya, by such things. Or another meaning is, know that you will not be distracted because the intelligence of the devotee is never attracted to material enjoyment. Verse 60, Yunjananam abhaktanam pranayamadi bhirmana akshina vasanam rajan drishyate punar uttita. The minds of non-devotees who engage in such practices as pranayama are not fully cleansed of material desires. Thus, O king, material desires are again seen to arise in their minds. Akshina vasana means they are not eliminated. So vasanas are desires, but not desires which just surface our mind. These are deep desires in the heart. heart desires, which are carrying us to our next destination. Actually, in one conversation when devotees were presenting different philosophers and Prabhupada was commenting, when I think Hayagriva was quoting Schopenhauer, he said, material life is a projection of the will. I don't know if you are familiar a little bit about Schopenhauer. He was about this will, and Prabhupada immediately when he heard, yes, that's correct. Most of the time Prabhupada was pointing in correctness in many ways of the philosophers, but with Socrates he agreed, of course, on the eternal soul and like that. But with Schopenhauer, he said, yes, this is correct. This is called vasana. Vasana means desire. Therefore, this vasana or will is the cause of his material existence, constantly changing, and on the account of changing will, he is changing body. And some other quotes from Prabhupada. Samsara vasana means desire for material enjoyment when it will become. So here is his. This is his quoting twice a song from Narottam Das Thakur and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Gauranga bolite have pulaka sharir hari hari bolidena. When I will sing the name or repeat the name of Gauranga, my body will tremble, my hairs will stand on end, and when I chant Hari Hari, I will start crying. And then he says, Ara Kavi Nityananda. When by the mercy of Lord Nityananda, samsara vasana kavi tucha have, these desires which keep us in the samsara, strong desires will become very insignificant, tucha. I will not care about them. And Prabhupada says here, they will become insignificant. But of course, so long as we've got this body, we have to accept so many things, material. But not in the spirit of enjoyment, but to keep the body and soul together. Bhakti Vasana, this desire that I will serve Krishna, this desire is sufficient to keep him, intact. This very desire, this will never die. So Prabhupada here quotes something which in the Veda base was with question mark of unknown source, but this is actually he's quoting a commentary of Jiva Goswami on a verse from Bhagavatam. This is in Bhakti Sandarbha, Bhakti Vasana. About Bhakti Vasana, so this will mean some deep desire, but not for samsara, but for bhakti, for devotion. So Rupa Goswami has Bhakti Vasana in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, saying that the taste for devotional service arises in those who have vasanas for bhakti. Vasana could mean, besides desire, also impressions or experience, past experience. Therefore, they develop taste, desire. So, Prabhupada says here that the material desires keep us here and will not entirely get rid of them, but we should accept only material things in the spirit of keeping the soul and body together, not in the spirit of enjoyment, but should cultivate bhakti. Because this vasana is something which we have created deeply in the heart by our activities and experience, and that experience cultivates something very deep, which at one point surfaces and then becomes very strong inclination or desire and lead us to do and to desire certain things, and then we are again and again take body according to this desire. Prabhupada said again in one other quote that this desire, if we want, if we have that specific vasana, if we want to become a dog, we become a dog. That's how Krishna responds, the material nature. And he is quoting a student who was saying, what's the problem to be a dog? Because Prabhupada in the class was saying, you can become a dog or a cat. And then, which, supposedly nobody wants. But the student was, what's the problem? You're being a dog, and his experience was probably about a dog in the West, who is the boss of the house, staying all day. In the morning they take him outside for a walk and serve nicely and collect his pool or whatever, and it's a nice life, he thought, the student. But Prabhupada had something else in mind. Even that is not a nice life, but once in Vrindavan, when his disciples first saw the dogs, and they were like, because they didn't have any, like with real skin because of whatever disease or eating improperly, they were really, looking poor, these dogs in Vrindavan. And then Prabhupada said, you see, this is a dog. So we don't want to become dogs and hogs. But this student was like, what is the problem? And Prabhupada, you don't understand? Then you can become a dog if you like. No problem. So this vasana brings us to a certain body. But if we cultivate a bhakti vasana with bhakti impressions and experiences, this will push us to Krishna. And one more quote from Srila Prabhupada where he uses again this word, and it's a letter to someone called Ved Prakash. Prabhupada says, my dear Ved Prakash ji, on Sunday morning, 29th of June 58, when you were speaking, I was very glad to note that you have studied the whole question of social and spiritual upliftment of mankind in a very broader sense. I was also glad to note that your study is deeper than many of the so-called sannyasis who take the shelter of a yellow robe for solving the question of breath problem. And because you are a critical student of everything, I am sure that you will appreciate the teaching of Lord Chaitanya when you hear them patiently and scrutinize the same by all practical tests. I mean, this by itself is just such a nice way. Prabhupada said, you appreciate the teachings of Lord Chaitanya if you patiently hear and analyze them intelligently and apply them, practically test them. I'm sure you'll appreciate. Lord Chaitanya's presentation of facts is that you cannot kill human propensities, but they can be changed for higher purposes. You said of annihilation of desire or vasana, but you can think on it very wisely. Or vasana cannot be stopped at all. No, vasana can never be stopped. The vasana is an eternal function of the soul, and as the soul is eternal or sanatana, soul is also the vasana. In other words, the desire. It's intrinsic in the nature of the soul. Therefore, vasana can be changed only from one object to another. The mind is always a thinking and feeling organ. It does not matter what does it think, but it is a fact that it thinks. So it will continue thinking and willing. And desire is the question of for what? What will be the object of thoughts and desires and will? So I am sure that you cannot probably put the mind completely at rest without thinking something. So the quality of thinking, feeling and willing has to be changed, but we may not attempt to kill the mind altogether. And there is also one verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's related to Ramachandra Puri. Just after he offended his guru by suggesting that Mahendra Puri should stop crying at the end of his life. Mahendra Puri was leaving his body and was crying and was saying something very special. He was repeating one verse again and again. He was talking about somebody who left and went to Mathura. He was in the mood of Srimati Radharani, in the mood of separation. I could not attain you, Kim Karomyaham. What shall I do now? My life is gone. I wasted it. I don't know. I did not attain you, O Lord of Mathura. Now what shall I do? And he was crying. And this Ramachandra Puri said, now you have to stop this emotional thing and focus on Brahman. And Mahendra Puri said, please go away. I don't want to see you at the end of my life. But, and then a verse is very important. It says, he became entangled in samsara vasana because of this offense. And the purport, Prabhupada gives many quotes from the Puranas and other which basically say one thing, that if you offend Bhagavat Aparada, if you offend a devotee or the Supreme Lord, even if you are liberated, Jivan Mukta, you will be, again this vasana material vasanas will arise. So that's another point. But here, Krishna is making also this Akshina Vasanam. You cannot really kill these vasanas mechanically by pranayama. Although Krishna recommends pranayama directly and quite emphatically, he's in 11th canto saying to Uddhava, if you do pranayama 3 times a day during the sandhyas, 10 times, 10 cycles, for 1 month, and you will conquer the mind. Sounds great, right? 1 month, 3 times a day, 10 cycles. It takes some time, depending on the cycles, but he actually explains that you have to breathe, breathe in, keep the breath, and breathe out, keep kumbhaka like that. So, is it contradicting Krishna himself? He's recommended pranayama, he's saying no, it doesn't work. You will conquer the mind, but the vasanas, the deep vasanas, in another instance, Prabhupada very nicely compared these deep desires as something which is at the bottom of a lake, let's say some old ancient crops or something which is, creating some, by the process, Yes, methane, whatever it is, by the process of this, for a long time being decomposed. So you see the surface of the lake is very peaceful, okay? You have attained this shanti by pranayama, by other mechanical methods, and suddenly, boom, something comes on the first, and you don't know where this came from. And that's because we have this deep vasa. So you cannot do it, that's what Krishna says. It cannot be completely cleansed in this way. Only bhakti. So he's now saying in the next verse 61, Vicharasva mahim kamam mai aveshita manasa astvesham nityada bhutubhyam bhaktir mai anapyayini. Wander this earth at will, with your mind fixed on me, may you always possess such unfailing devotion to me. 62. Kshatra dharma stito jantun nityadhir mrigayadibhi samahitastat tapasa jahyagham mat upashrita. Because you follow the principles of a kshatriya, you kill living beings while hunting and performing other duties. You must vanquish the sins thus incurred by carefully executing penances while remaining surrendered to me. And then this verse, today, O king, in your next life you will become an excellent brahmana, the greatest well-wisher of all creatures, and certainly come to me alone. So what do you think? Why, after Krishna assuring Chukunda that his mind is pure and strong, and he has unflinching faith and devotion, he has to do something to purify from his past activities? Isn't that exactly the opposite of what he says? I mean, Muchukunda directly saw Krishna and said, I am coming to you, I seek your shelter, I want the service, the only thing I want is the service to your lotus feet. So that's exactly what Krishna says at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharmam Parityajam Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. You come to me for shelter, and Moksha Shami, I will free you from everything, from old sins. And he says, well, you had some sins, and one more birth. You have to come back again to purify yourself. Is that a contradiction? Why is he saying that? Any guesses?
Well, you just have to look at Vishwanath.
Okay, I prepared it, but I will read it. Well, there are different explanations by the acharyas. Interestingly, I will read only Vishwanath because that's very interesting. But we can think about a little bit also before hearing. Why? It seems he's a pure devotee, and definitely by surrendering, there is no more sin. Why he has to do something that he, actually one of the acharyas says, I think Jiva Goswami, actually there is no sin because a kshatriya is supposed to kill. And that's part of his dharma, and that there is no sin because you have to do this. So why Krishna said, well, you perform something which is sinful, you have to purify by penance. Okay. Set an example. Yeah, that's there also. Okay, I'll read. I can't also where we are. 60. Okay, let's actually. I didn't read 60. Yeah, let's read Jiva Goswami's to verse 60 about the pranayama. Those who engage in other practices to give up desire will deviate. Those who have attained samadhi do not rid their minds of desire for enjoying objects, since they lack bhakti, which creates steadiness in the mind. Steadiness in the sense of being shaken by material desire or attraction. Otherwise, bhakti, as we know, is not this shanti of just complete steadiness and stillness and there's nothing. The mind of a pure devotee is the heart is full of emotion. That's the rasa. It's like a waves. That's why Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu, the ocean of rasa, all waves. But this is not that kind of unsteadiness of material hankering and mind. Due to the samsara vasana. So this steadiness here is not really distracted by anything material. And then in 61, how can I develop bhakti? This is Sanatana Goswami. Fix your mind on me, at your will, come on, serving my lotus feet. Wander in a special manner, alone or associating with devotee, chanting my name. You will have causeless or continuous bhakti, since your devotion is exclusive. 62, when Krishna says, because of this following of the kshatriya principles, you have to do this penance. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is giving now the thoughts of Muchukunda. Muchukunda thought, then do you want to separate me from yourself? No, you should not do that. Do not do that. It's because Krishna says, now you have to wander around. And because he saw Krishna and he's like, okay, and you're here. You're in this world and it's more or less the beginning of the pastimes, because this is when Krishna is still in Mathura. So Krishna will stay for some more time, and maybe Muchukunda is thinking, well, I'll join your pastimes, right? You want to separate me? No, you should not do that. Seeing Muchukunda's great anxiety, Krishna then considered, in this avatar, you should not associate with me directly. My associates, such as Arjuna, Yudhishthira, Uddhava, and Akrura, appearing at the end of Dvapara Yuga, seeing you, who are from the beginning of the Manvantara, will laugh when they see your huge form, so different from themselves. So it's not appropriate. And in the pastimes of fleeing Jarasandha, kidnapping Rukmini, and fighting with Jarasandha and Shalva, etc., you will not be suitable to be with me. You will kill them all like mosquitoes, crushing them with your two hands. But then, what reason should I give to separate you from me? So Krishna has this internal according to Vishwanath Chakravarti. You disturb the rasa, you come up with this form and just kill everybody. I have a whole plan for my pastime. But I have to have an excuse. What is the excuse to separate you? After thinking like this, he said something a little false to mislead Muchukunda. Thus he speaks this verse. Little false is, well, you incurred some sin and you have to atone. Do some penances. So that's Vishwanath Chakravarti's explanation. Then 62, Jiva Goswami, this is another of the same verse. Showing fear, you should engage in penance to teach others. Well, this is the example. Well, to teach others, that's one of the reasons. This is actually a secondary purpose. The main purpose was to increase longing by delay. Have you experienced that your longing increased by delay? Means like you want something but you can't attain it, and then the longer you desire it, the more the desire increases, and when you attain it, it's like, the enjoyment is much, much better. Right? You have anyone experience? Have you heard of Epicurean philosophy? Epicurus was a Greek philosopher, and usually he's connected like the father of hedonism, just enjoy to the fullest extent. But it's not what we think nowadays, just overindulge the senses. He was really moderate. He was prescribing exactly this, not in a spiritual sense, just material sense, but if you want, because in the whole Greek philosophy, their idea was to have some kind of enjoyment by balance and peace. So you have to have this moderation. But he was like, you can enjoy if you have a nice association in a nice group of people. Therefore, you should live in communities of like-minded people. Sounds familiar? Who have same goals, and then your happiness will come from moderation and delaying enjoyment. You delay, you wait, and then when you enjoy it, it's really strong. Of course, it's completely materialistic, but Krishna does this with devotees. He separates himself in order to increase the prema by this strong feeling of separation. So the main purpose was to increase longing by delay in order to produce Muchukunda's intense prema for the Lord. One other example is, one of the explanations of the Acharyas is in the case of Bharat Maharaj. Because he attained bhava, yes, he was distracted, his sadhana went down, and he unfortunately left his body thinking about the deer to which he became attached. But then, how can Krishna leave him like that? Why is that? This is the question of the Acharyas. Is it just by mistake? How can Krishna not protect the devotee who has attained such high level? He left, thank you so much, he left everything. In the kingdom, he was emperor, and just because of a deer. So one of the explanations, of course, is again to show an example what can happen of somebody who is neglectful, negligent in the sadhana. But another reason is that Vishwanath Chakravarti, the Kurudev, explains it's Krishna purposefully made us. He gives us an example of how devotee progress may be checked in devotional service. And he says there are two main reasons. One reason is aparada. Devotee, especially advanced devotees, they can stop their progress if they commit offense, or by the desire of the Lord. That can also be checked. Seemingly, in this case, of course, that meant another life and another life, two more lives. But the Acharyas explained that, well, actually Krishna wanted to increase his prema of Bharat Maharaj, therefore he created two more lives, and then he was really intensely desiring. Also with Narada, he appeared to him, he told him, now, he was completely purified in that sense that he heard the Lord, saw him within his heart, he was ecstatic, and then Krishna told him, I'm sorry, but you'll not see me anymore in this life. So you will be born again, and then you attain perfection. So, yeah, Krishna may do this to increase. And then the last sentence, or to increase his longing, the Lord shows the semblance of his final duties. In other words, you have to do penance, but this is just a semblance of final duties. By concentration upon me, tapasa, give up impressions, enter a state of fainting. And then the last verse, as we said, why Krishna says you will take another birth, and here Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura says, then, when will I get your association? So Muchukunda didn't protest. Okay, I'll have to take another birth, but can you tell me when we will attain your association? Krishna answers in this verse, after leaving this body, you will go to my abode Vaikuntha. This is interpretation of Vishwanath Chakravarti. But what is this for you, the greatest devotee? When in this avatara I work liberation, even Vaikuntha to my enemies as well. So, this is not fair. Even my enemies I kill, they go to Vaikuntha, some of them. So you are the greatest devotee. How is that, appropriate for you? However, when we will appear together in the future, when I appear in another avatar form, I will make you my associate and participant in my pastimes. Antari Janmani. You are the best friend of all living beings because you help the jivas and give suitable philosophical knowledge, Sarvabhuta Suhrittama. Becoming the most worshipable Brahmana, you will remain in my association, without desire to taking things for yourself because of complete detachment, Kevalam. Okay, that was the last purport. Any reflections or comments? Yes?
Rupa Goswami also uses the word vasana as the explanation for why the jiva is in a particular relationship with Krishna.
Yes, that comes in the verse I quoted was in the beginning of second wave, in the first chapter, and in the fifth chapter, I believe, when he explains the Sthai Bhava, or the Rati. Why, when it is explained that the Madhurya Sthai Bhava, Madhurya Rati, is the highest, some devotees are attracted to other rasas. And he explains, because of ancient vasana, ancient experiences and inclinations, or impressions from before they become attracted in this life to a specific taste. So what does exactly that mean? This Asian is not entirely clear. And the acharyas, they just repeat and explain it. Yeah, this is developed in time until it ripens to a particular love for Krishna, and then it matures, and then you attain your Siddhadeha in that particular taste or rasa or rati. Anything else? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Do you want to, when we hear about the Lord offering benedictions, we always hear it in such majestic and wonderful ways. The Lord appeared and offered his devotee benedictions.
Yeah.
So, do you want to attempt this to, in a less dramatic way? Is it something that's a part of the regular devotee's life? Is the Lord doing that with us and giving us those moments, or is it only in such amazing cases, or is it something that's actually a part of a devotee's day to day? And then is it Maya or Krishna when enticing?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I thought about it actually when I was thinking about these verses, and I was, I think that this is relevant for all of us. It's not just unless Krishna appears to me directly or within the heart in some form of darshan, then and offers you want something or offer a specific thing, then it's not relevant for me. Yeah, when I thought how these verses could be relevant for us, this was I came to this conclusion that actually this is what happens to us. Also, we have choices, and sometimes things happen in our life in a way that we can be, enticed or attracted, and then it's a test. Whether it comes directly from Krishna or Maya indirectly, again, as we know from Brahma Samhita, Maya is acting exactly like the shadow of Krishna. In other words, she is not independent. She moves, especially with devotees, in general, but especially with devotees. She wouldn't do anything because she's a pure devotee. Chaya. So, Chaya, what is it? Srishti Pralaya Sadhana Bhakti. Chayeva Yasa, Chayeva, like a shadow. Bhuvanani Bibharti Durga. Ichan Rupam Apyasa Chacheshtatesa. Icha. Just she moves by the Icha, by the desire of Govinda. So, I think that's the explanation which is given by the acharyas in the beginning stages. That's quite obvious that Maya is testing, because she wouldn't let, like Prabhupada said, Maya would never let someone unqualified come close to Krishna. Cheaters and hypocrites and whatever, unqualified. So she will put tests and obstacles and so many things to test us and purify us. And Prabhupada said, Maya, Krishna has different ways of purification, and one is a gentle way, he's advising us do this and that, and if we are not taking that way, then there is Maya, and he purifies us by kicks, by kicking us in the face. And he says, so she's very expert in that. So these kicks may come in different ways. Again, it could be just some obstacles, suffering, so many things. But it could be, just allurements, like something, and we are enticed, and then we become a victim. But Krishna will never let the devotee, a sincere devotee, but will do that in order to show. Usually there is some connection that the devotee is either proud or, so then there are different things that needs purification, and then to show that, to put the devotee in the appropriate position to admit where actually devotee is. Well, I'm actually here, I'm not somewhere there, which I imagined. Then something happens, and then we're entangled, we're enticed. So yes, I certainly think that Krishna is offering us all the time benedictions to desire. He says, I respond to devotees' prayer. And it's up to us to actually develop the hearts of these great devotees and, become like them and cultivate this bhakti vasana. And again desire deeply this, or at least admit, even if we have other desires, say, my dear Lord, here is my predicament, my situation. I'm so poor and unfortunate, and my mind is uncontrolled, and my senses, I don't know what to do with them. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in the song Gopinath, I tried everything, but I failed. So now you are my only hope. Many times he says that, you are now my only hope. And when we approach Krishna like that, and we admit, like Madhava Miro discussed, it's much better that we sincerely admit to Krishna, I have this problem, I have this desire, than hypocritically, pray something artificial. But when we admit that we have other desires or, things which are not pure, we have to say, but I want you. I only want you. But this is on the way. Please take care somehow or other and help me. Any other? Yes.
You mentioned that Madhavendra Puri was repeating the same verse over and over again in the mood of Srimati Radharani, and so far I understood that Krishna is God, and he can take the mood of Srimati Radharani by becoming Lord Chaitanya. But when when devotees like jivas also get into the mood of Srimati Radharani, then I don't quite understand why they can do that. Can you please explain?
Thank you, Hare Krishna, for a good question. Do you think that this is a conscious choice? Okay, now I'm taking the mood of Radharani. What do you think?
Well, I guess it's not something that can be imitated.
Yes, certainly. Therefore, if it's for someone, a jiva, who is of the caliber of Mahendra Puri, obviously is not an imitation. And it's not something like, okay, now let me plan how I'll imitate the mood, or even if it's not an imitation, what happens is that when our hearts are pure by the process of bhakti, we are infused with this bhava by the mercy of Srimati Radharani. That's called Bhakti Shakti. It's a special Shakti of the Lord, which acharyas say that's the reason why we advance. And then our hearts, when they become infused with this Bhakti Shakti, we can experience these feelings. Not to the extent of Srimati Radharani, and neither our feelings of separation, neither our attraction to Krishna or our love, but it's a semblance. And the comparison in Chaitanya Charitamrita is a mustard seed and the Mount Meru. The feelings and experience of Radharani are like Mount Meru, and the jiva is like, but it's the same quality. You can experience feelings of separation, especially if you are in the mood of following Srimati Radharani and the gopis in their way of serving Krishna. If you are attracted to this mood of service and want to become a follower and assist them in their service, then they will give you that. It's not your, like, okay, now I'm now I'm experiencing what Radharani experiences. That's not what happens. It's a devotee becomes blessed by their kripa, by their mercy, by your sincere endeavor and prayer and desire to be a follower and assistant, and then you can experience, something. Even at the not very advanced stage, we can experience some feelings of separation, and Prabhupada acknowledged that even with neophyte devotees, they could feel some separation, and Prabhupada said, yes, that is our goal. This is our goal. He never rejected genuine feelings of devotees. I remember Rumila told me once, Prabhupada, when it was a speculative thing of intellectual, about rasa and things, Prabhupada was heavy. Don't speculate, wait until you mature. But when some devotees genuinely expressed something they felt about Krishna, he acknowledged it. So we can experience something. It's not an imitation, and it's a blessing from the eternal associate. Yes.
But in relation to this, so
Take the mic.
So it was in the mood of the gopis then, rather than in the mood of a specific gopi.
Who? Mahendra Puri?
Yeah, in relation to her question.
Yeah, this is a general feeling of separation, but the wording was specific about Srimati Radharani, and it is said that this verse was what she was saying, because it addresses Krishna who left for Mathura, but all of the gopis felt that, so that's what we can experience also in that mood of separation. That is something very tangible. Yeah, this is what our process leads to. The process of sadhana bhakti, which starts with vaidhi and develops to spontaneous raga nuga desire to follow in the footsteps of these devotees, and this is very natural, that type of experience. And it may not be there, even with other rasas they feel not just Madhura Rasa, if you separation. That's explained in the Nectar of Devotion. Subal, when Krishna left, he said there is no point of staying in Vrindavan. Mother Yashoda, what kind of separation? The kitchen had what's called this? Huh? Yeah. Yeah, right. The spider webs, it was just empty and she was like without a soul. Sometimes just scolding Maharaj Nanda for not marrying Krishna in Vrindavan and keeping him here. Why did you bring him to why you left him in Mathura? So they all felt, they were devastated. They all felt, where is Krishna? We cannot live. And they all asked this question, what shall we do now? So that's the mood. Kim karomiham. What shall we do? This is a feeling of separation. This watch, is it purposefully, deceitfully made for 20 years? 20 minutes before. It's 20 to 9, but now I see it's 2 after, 4 after. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.